Welcome in, James Ham, 1320 Kings Insider. James, there's a lot we want to talk to you about, but we'll start with how do you feel about the way the Kings played last night?
You know, it's tough. I don't like the final score. I thought that they got bullied a little bit. I think that they got pushed around, and that's not something that we've kind of seen. They have played a lot of physical teams early in the season, and I think overall they've matched the physicality. I think in that game very specifically, I felt like Mike Brown was search, and he said that he's used that term like he was searching, but like this is typically like it's one of those moments where a lot of coaches like tighten the rotation greatly.
Mhm.
They go, okay, I'm gonna go out there with eight, maybe eight and a half guys, and I'm gonna try to win this with my core. I'm gonna try to get this first win in the book, and we're gonna move forward, and then I can expand on the rotation as we go along. And it's something I asked Mike about at practice today. I don't understand playing 12 guys. I get it. Some of the time you're forced to because of foul calls on Sabonis. But he really it really does feel like he's searching. And off the bench, the only guy that we're seeing that's been consistent at all is Monk, and that's only in the last two games. The first two games he wasn't great, but we're starting to see him step up and take on sort of a leadership role of that second team. Last night he had 7 assists. The game before I think he had 8 assists. That's showing you he's not just trying to get himself going, but he's trying to get others going in that second unit. But at some point, I would like to see Mike not like search on a broad scale, but like bring it back in and say, okay, this is my core. This is who we're going to go to battle with, and then kind of play it from there, because I feel like a lot of this is like unfamiliarity between the starting unit and second unit, or the first, second, and third unit. I just think that it feels like this group hasn't been together very long, and they haven't, but it really does feel that way right now.
James, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, they need to tighten up that core. Who do you think is in that core though? Because I said I looked at the starters from last year. That's or last night. That's five. You got Davion, you got Monk, you got TD. I said Rashawn Holmes. A lot of people were like, "Oh no, if Rashawn Holmes needs to be in there." They wanted to put Alex Lynn in there, but right now, I think he probably has seven guys he could rely on, and I'm taking Davion out of the guys that you can rely on because he's not. I guess he's okay. He's 7.5. Mike Brown used a half. Right now, it feels like Davion is a half. But who would you have in that core of nine guys or so?
Yeah, it's really difficult. To be honest with you, I don't know what the answer is to that. And I think that's what he's looking at as well. Rashawn Holmes, specifically defensively, has not played well. And that's become an issue. I mean, watching some of the clips that you're seeing online, watching back some of the game last night, just it feels like not grasping concepts as opposed to like not playing hard, and that seems really strange. You've been in the NBA for a long time. It's not like they're trying to reinvent the wheel with their pick and roll coverage, but how often do we see like it's just out of sync? No one is playing together with that second unit, specifically on the defensive end. And then on the offensive end, I think we're seeing a lot of guys just pressing. Like Davion Mitchell's pressing. And I'll point to this too. Like, I don't want to call out a young guy and say, point fingers, because what's happening here isn't Davion Mitchell's fault. They've pulled the ball out of his hands and put it in Monk's hands for a lot of the time, or Monk's just taken it because that's kind of the way it's gone. But anytime you see a player look over and he's about to come out of the game and they rush a shot and hoist something up, that to me is always like a sign that, like, okay, conversations need to be had, because that's what we started seeing last night. Mitchell was going to come out of the game, and all of a sudden, boom, he's hoisting up a quick shot before he goes out of the game. And that just, it doesn't feel right and it doesn't look right. And at the same time, he's a young player who it feels like instead of just doing what he does and play defense really well, he feels like he's got to score in order for this thing to work, for him to get more minutes. And I just don't think that's the case. He needs to play defense, and he hasn't been horrible defensively, but he's fouled a lot. And I feel like most of his offensive stuff, it feels like you got, 8 guys that are doing the same thing, and then one guy who's dribbling a bunch and trying to make things happen for himself, and it just feels forced. And again, I don't like that whole second unit. It feels like no one knows what their role is, and that doesn't make a lot of sense because those guys have been playing together a lot at practice.
I don't know if you recognize this as he was answering it, but we played the video of you talking to Mike Brown earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike Brown, we think, answered your question about tightening up the rotation 3 different ways before finally saying, yeah, I'm going to tighten it up. Because he talked about, for some reason, playing LeBron 45 minutes and then he, and they say, can't do that here. And we think we know what he was talking about, but he ended your conversation with, I think we're going to tighten up the rotation. So is that how you took it? Like the rotation is going to be smaller on tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really surprised it wasn't yesterday. I mean, if I'm a coach,
that's what I thought when he said he was going to experiment. That's what we absolutely thought he was tightening up the rotation.
Yeah, and like when you're an NBA coach, like this is my 9th NBA head coach. Like I like all of them have,
One more, I think you get a free one.
Yeah, their differences. I think I do get one for free after this. Yeah, my card is full.
Exactly.
The punch card is full.
Yep.
When things start to scramble like this and things start to go sideways, and you guys are right. Like, this schedule has been very tough. Portland is a lot better than people thought. They probably won't look that way in 2 weeks with Dame out. But still, they're a much better team than people thought they would be. The Clippers are extremely tough. The Warriors are the champs. Memphis is like a 2 or a 3 seed. I mean, Memphis is really good. And so I'm going to say, like, what's best case scenario here? 1 and 3? Like, that's realistically what you should have expected. Maybe not because it's at home, but still, I mean, even a 2 and 2 record would have been like a really big stretch just looking at the games in front of you. But normally when a coach has this moment where things go south, they usually pare things down to the basics and say, okay, we're going to go with 8 men and we're going to try to become a well-oiled machine for a game or two. And then we'll start peppering in additional guys. And, of course, things happen. Guys get foul trouble, all that stuff. But the Kings had 3 days off before this game to prepare. And then they had the day off afterwards. So if you got to run like 5 guys out there for 40 minutes, like what he talked about with LeBron, that's okay. The players understand that, and they're fine with it. They're ready to go. Mm-hmm. I just feel like we got a little too creative. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that I thought maybe I'm getting some grief from this online because I'm a UC Davis guy, but I thought Shima Monecki, he did some crazy things that were totally impactful on the court in the very limited time he was out there. These little tiny deflections, he's stepping up and taking one on the chin from Steven Adams. Like, I thought he was active. I don't think he got in the way. And so I thought that there were some good things, but at the same time, like, you don't have time to experiment when you're 0-3 going 0-4. Yeah. And so I do expect Mike to, like, just get somewhat back to some familiarity. And the other thing, coming out of the post game last night, he said it like 3 or 4 times that they just shot right over the top of their guards out on the perimeter, that they thought that they did a really good job for 20 or 21 seconds, the shot clock, and then Desmond Bane just rose up and shot over him. And the thing that stuck out to me is, okay, where you played 12 guys in the first half, where was KZ Okpala? Like, you talk about a guy you don't rise up and shoot over the top of. He's 6'8" with a 7'2" wingspan and hasn't allowed that to happen. So while he has some offensive deficiencies, if you're putting him in the right position, that's a guy that I thought would have made sense. Again, we've talked to KZ about this. Like, who do you prefer? Do you prefer to play like a small guy in the perimeter? Or do you prefer like a bigger guy. He goes, oh no, I prefer the bigger guys. Well, Brandon Clark ran roughshod over those guys. Like he beat them up, and they were searching for answers when it kind of felt like the answer was sitting there, and that you believed in that answer for the first 2 games of the season, 3 games of the season when you started the guy, and now you've gone away from him. And so, I think as opposed to experimenting completely, you could have stayed within sort of guys that had become familiar with each other, and I think that would have helped.
That's a great point, James. Because now I was going to go there. I was just going to ask the question, and these are the things that I'm not saying that's what the Kings are doing, but these are the things that kind of makes players look at coaches a little funny. Where you have a guy in KZ Okpala for the entire preseason. In the first 2 games, he's your starter, and then you take him out of the starting lineup, and he can't even get in the game. It's something like that where it's like, well, okay, well, what are we doing? And looking at the coach and the coaching staff and thinking, do you know what you're doing? Like, do you have an idea of what you're doing? Because that doesn't make it, and especially in a game where you play 12 guys and he doesn't play, how does he go from starting to he can't get in the game at all? And basketball wise, I agree with you. That's somebody that I would have put Desmond Bain on. He put Monecki on him a couple of times. And, Bain was just feeling it. He hit some big shots. Monecki was right there and he hit some big shots. But if you're looking for a guy to come in and try to slow him down or give him a different look, the fact that the guy that was starting for you for the last combining preseason and regular season for the last 3 weeks can't even get in the game anymore, and he didn't do anything wrong. Those are the things that you look at and you say, okay, well, this could be something where the players are like, yo, what's this guy doing right here?
Yeah, I don't see that at all. I mean, I do still believe that they're all in on Mike Brown, that they have bought in 100%. And I told you guys this in the beginning. This is something that many NBA coaches believe. You never start your best 5 players, which he didn't do for the first 3 games of the season, because Keegan Murray's one of your best 5 players without any question. But when you make the switch, a lot of times they'll skip over that guy. But in this situation, you're looking at a young guy who's going to play 35 minutes a game, and he's sliding into that starting role. And now it's like, who's going to be that next guy? And it really does come to trying to balance out that second unit. Because if you're having trouble scoring, well, like KZ Okpala is not the answer. And so I get that. So it didn't surprise me that KZ didn't play. It did surprise me that, again, Chimezi Metu had a good moment in the game against Golden State, where he was on the floor when they made a huge run and got back in the game. Well, I didn't accept that at face value. Like, to me, that game wasn't close at all. And even though the final score, they got within a couple of points, it just felt like that they were kind of like, the Warriors just put it in neutral. And maybe we're toying with the Kings a little bit, or just kind of like shut off after the first half when they dropped 89 points. They just kind of, were messing around a little bit. And so while I think Metu had a good moment there and he played well, I also wouldn't have taken that as like, I got to, switch things up now. You played a really good team. So I think there is this issue that if you're going to say that the excuse is you played a really tough schedule, well, then you can't really look at things that are going wrong and overanalyze them. You played a tough schedule. It's okay to say that. But what you can't do is just keep tinkering and tinkering and tinkering, because then you forget what was working and you forget the basics, and you get away with what realistically could have been the plan or was a plan coming into the season. And here we are 4 days later, and we already got guys out of the rotation and kind of weird. So, I don't want to blame Mike Brown here. And I just think that, he's looking for a boost. And guys like Chima Monecki, they've had really strong camps, and they've brought excitement, and they've changed sort of the attitude of the team at certain moments. And so there's nothing wrong with giving them a shot. But I would try to get the first win first and then go from there. Like, get that win under your belt.
Yeah, it feels like the weight of each loss is getting heavier and heavier our 1320 Kings insider, James Ham, with us here. We'll talk more with James. I want to shift to what you saw at practice today. We obviously talked a little bit about Mike Brown, heard a little bit from Keegan Murray as well, but want another update on what happened at practice. So we'll talk more with James Ham when D'Lo and Casey return here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. What's happening, Hammer?
Oh, not a whole lot, man. Sorry, scramble day. I should have came in studio, but I've got some stuff going on a little bit later, and it was just tough to get up here. And
You're missing the party.
practice ran late. Oh yeah, the party is going on right now. I forgot about that.
Like the rest of us.
Yeah, party's lit.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, the doom and gloom, like they aren't there. Like it was loose today at practice. I was very, very surprised. Very loose. Well, everyone got to play. I guess that's part of it, right?
That's what it is.
CYBL.
Well, what
Ellie's mom was in the audience. Got to make sure he gets some seconds out there.
Yeah, actually, I went over to him in the locker room. This is okay. So, people who hear me like complain about the locker room situation, or not the locker room, or the media, the access situation, and stuff like that. I'll tell you, this is like one of those moments. We've had a couple of them already. I went in the locker room last night. Deli was sitting there, and I just walked over and I said, "Hey, man, I know you've been a pro for a long time, but it was good to see you make it back to the league." And he's like, "Thank you." Those are moments where, like, as media, you get to like actually say things to people that maybe a lot of people would like to say to them. And, it's cool to be back in and have those moments at this point, because a guy like that really, he's been through it. He's had a ton of injuries and, played in Australia. He barely played the 4 seasons before that. And even if it was a couple of minutes, it's like, that's one more year of NBA on his retirement. He just, he just made an extra $800 a month for the rest of his life on his, because I think that's what you get. You get $800 for every year of service as your monthly as your retirement. And so it's good. It's good to see that happen. The pension, exactly. So, but that, and even like racing in and talking to Herder last night, making sure that we.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about that on the air too.
Yeah, I figured.
I saw you tweet about that.
Yeah.
Anthony Davis is out.
Yeah.
Great. That'll hurt my fantasy team, which I'm not very good at. I haven't played fantasy basketball in like 20 something years, and
Me too.
some of these Kings guys got me to jump in. And not that I don't want to mention this on the air, but big shout out to Deuce. Everyone give
he's
Deuce
talking
Mason
about it. Like, we mentioned it at the start of the show. He talked about it on the podcast last night.
Yeah. So give Deuce a big air hug out there, everybody. He it's tough. His grandma meant a lot to him, helped raise him. So sad day for Deuce, and their family, that whole entire group.
Yeah,
that's tough.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Brian Kivett, it was not Brendan who got me playing fantasy. Some of the old Sacktown royalty guys asked me to play. And again, I haven't played fantasy basketball. I don't know how long, probably 20 years at least. But my son said he would help me out. And it's a keeper league, and we had bad keepers. And so we're getting trashed. I think we're doing okay for a team that had Anthony Davis, who's going to miss half the season because that's Anthony Davis, and we had Chris Middleton, who was hurt coming into the year, and we had Fred VanVleet, and those were our keepers. It's like, yeah,
yikes.
Not great, Bob.
Whew.
Lord. Well, they lose a couple more games. Hear rumblings about jobs.
Oh my gosh. The worst part is that they'll still talk. They'll still talk to feed that nonsense.
I can't believe that.
Seriously. he even said it. Like, he went there about the head coach and then caught himself, well, we just signed a 4-year deal. Like, Jesus.
What is that with the blue shirt?
I don't know who none of those people are.
You guys seem totally bitter about
I
this.
don't know who most of those people
First
are.
of all, I'm starving, and they're just drinking and eating, having a great time.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Try to go to the bathroom and it smells like Golden One Center out there. Like, hey, where's this?
No, I
food
noticed
coming
that
from?
too. Though there are people who aren't usually here who are here.
Like, who the hell is that guy? Right there. Who the hell is that guy? Who the hell is he?
Nobody knows, to be honest.
Like, he's waving at everybody, bro. Who are you?
You know what's
I've seen you in here.
Did Charlie give up on us? Is that Charlie?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Charlie!
That's so funny. Go back to your office, Charlie.
Oh,
You know what's funny is
fuck them hoes. I'm going to
I've been to a bunch of radio stations to do hits, and the new building, they don't have the show playing in the office, which is kind of different. I would have expected that you guys would have it playing.
Well, they absolutely wouldn't be playing our show.
No,
They'd be
they
playing
definitely
somebody else's
wouldn't
show.
be playing. Hang on.
Oh, gotcha.
Hang on.
Okay.
They don't love us like that, James. They don't love us like that here. We're the we're the
outcasts.
alsos. Yeah.
We're the outcasts.
This is Odyssey and D-Lo and Casey.
I'm literally a redheaded stepchild, so I understand.
Yes, that's it. That's absolutely that's absolutely what we are. Bryce does bring up a good point. We were asking, there's a company party taking place outside our studio right now that clearly we're not invited to.
People that don't even be in this building.
Yeah, and I looked at like look, there's another one. Who the hell are these people walking in? Who are these people walking in? Now there are children walking in here, and Bryce does make a good point. In fairness, that's what they say about you. Who the hell is that guy? Good point.
That's a good point.
People just coming in here waving like, bro, who are you? What are you doing here?
They got the key card on the phone. We just got the little fob.
Yeah.
You need the flashing red light that says on air. Like so they know they don't just walk into the studio. Hey, how are you guys?
No, it is a solid. It doesn't flash. It's a solid red light.
Got it.
And Boise's asking, can they hear you? No,
No.
they can't.
Yeah.
We'd have to be really, really loud, and you'd have to be like these studios are pretty.
The only person that can hear us ever is Gina.
Gina's the only one who can
That's
hear
it.
us. Yeah, and the only thing we can't hear people talk, but these women who got those shoes on,
Mhm.
you could hear the click clacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hear the
Yeah.
click clacks like it's thundering. The beginning of Cha-Cha.
The plan was for me to come in studio today and actually go to the party and leave you guys out there, and
that
then
That would have been phenomenal.
roll in, like stumble in, like 3 sheets, like
You'd be like, hey, James.
There's red solo cups out there.
308, like, hey, what's up?
How about those Kings, guys? How about those Kings?
Let me tell you about the Kings and what I saw last night.
Let's
Oh, by the way, I meant to say this earlier. Shout out Jody Bacon. You know, I still got love for her.
Jody Bacon showing her love for the number to be fair. This is 100% true. The over under was 6.5. How many people would ask me, where's your partner? Where's
5.
Casey? The number was 6. The number was 6. The over under was 6.5. The number was 6. Two things of note. I didn't spend a lot of time on the concourse. That's because I spent a ton of time talking to Sarah Hodges last night.
Okay.
2, this is a very true story. First person I saw walking into the building today was Mia Moore. First thing Mia Moore says to me is, where's your partner?
What? Why?
So it was 6, but really, it should have been 7. And to be fair, a lot of people are in on the bit now. Jody was being explained the bit. She was like, "Oh, I like. I'm going to tweet about Kenny. I didn't know she was going to tweet
I got
that.
a tweet. I said, what
What?
the hell?
Yeah,
Drive by. Shots fired.
everybody wants to know
And
where
there was
Kenny's
no
at.
follow up either. If I didn't
No,
ask
she just left
Damien,
it.
I would have been in the
She
win.
just left it. That's Jody though. That's how Jody operates. She'll just let it live out there, and then you'll see her
Yes.
whatever day. Hey, Casey, what's happening?
Shout out Jody. How you doing?
Vibes at practice today. Let's but before we get to vibes, let's get back to Mike Brown. Anything else of note come out of your conversation with Mike Brown?
I think he's still projecting that positivity. And a lot of it is trying to clean up some of the issues that they've had. And that, he even said, like, if we would have been able to clean up some of the issues that we see now, we cleaned up a bunch. If we would have had those cleaned up before game 1, game 2, game 3, we would have won. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. And if you would have had, like, especially like the free throw issue, is all of a sudden it's no more. Like, they've shot 80+% for 2 straight games. The Harrison Barnes issue, lo and behold, like, Harrison Barnes gets asked about his play, and Harrison Barnes plays like a man possessed, and I thought was excellent in that game. I mean, the rebound numbers could have been a little higher, but overall, I thought he was really good. I think we're starting to see this team, specifically with Keegan in the starting lineup. The spacing was better. Like, people can complain that Sabonis only had 11 points, but man, like, there aren't too many people in this world that are as big as Steven Adams. Like, I don't know if anyone has ever actually, like, run into Steven Adams, like, on the street, but that dude is like I don't know, like,
To him by the media room.
yeah, I mean, he's a legit,
He's a very big dude.
He's like 18 inches thick at the chest. Like, he is a big man, and he's funny. Although
he's a very nice guy. Yeah, he's
a very nice guy.
He's scary on sight, but like, he's a very nice guy.
He's a very nice guy, and he's just gigantic. But like, you're gonna have trouble going in the post and scoring against a guy like that if you're a ground-based guy like Sabonis is. Like, if you're a guy who can drag him outside, then sure, you're going to, have a good night when Steven Adams is in the game, and they'll go away from him. But I thought Sabonis, 11 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists?
Yeah, but the frustration with Sabonis was what?
The 6 shots, the 6 shot attempts. This sounds crazy, James. I would have been happier if he was 4-13. Like, yeah. I can't have 6 shot attempts from what I still have, and some people still question it, my second best player.
Yeah, he did get in foul trouble, so that cost him a bit of time in the first half. And that foul, I mean, then they tried Rashawn Holmes for 3 minutes, and that didn't work, so they went to Alex Len. Like, it was a bit of a mess. Again, like, grasping at straws a little bit. And again, I don't blame Mike for grasping at straws. If something's not working and something's shown you 4 games in a row that it's not working, which there are things that are happening on this team that has been a consistent issue, then try something else. That's totally fine with me. But again, like, you have to, like, come in with a game plan and stick to the game plan and hope that it works out. And it didn't. So, so I think it's a mix. Like, 12 guys playing in the first half and you still lose. I mean, you were throwing stuff at the wall at some point, and I get it, but
it just felt like he was throwing the wrong stuff. I don't know why you guys throw stuff against the wall anyways, but like, I feel like he was throwing the wrong things.
Well, it didn't work, so it looks that way for sure. And I certainly, again, like, the Metu thing, what they saw in the Golden State game, I'll tell you very specifically. What they saw in the Golden State game was when they put Metu at the 5. So they did play 4 different centers pretty much last night. But when they put Metu at the 5, it gave them the ability to switch all 5 positions. So, like, they could have anyone play anybody. And that's where they thought they got back into the Golden State game, is because he gave them that ability. He's able to defend the perimeter a little bit, and so they like that switchability. So when it got to this game, I think that's what they were going with, but then they just got pounded in the paint. I mean, that was a problem. They gave up 66 points in the paint. It was, guys, it's kind of like the same thing what we saw in the previous 3 games where guys who are secondary and third level scorers are going into the paint and scoring over the top of you. You guys are waving at people and everything else.
Somebody finally recognized that we were here.
It's the first person to wave at us all day. I damn near got a little thug tear going down the side. And my brother doesn't even work here. It's Justine's boyfriend.
Just another rando.
He's a sneakerhead. He literally waved at me because we're sneakerheads. That's why. That's why.
Oh man. So here's the one thing that I would say, and you laid out, why they went to Metsu first before anybody, which was kind of perplexing.
Yes, first, very first.
Didn't see that coming, but you explained why, so I understand that. But I know, you're talking about like they were looking for something, but like what was going on wasn't even that bad. Right, like it's not like you were down by 15.
They were winning. They were up by 10, and then they made subs. And I thought,
let's get the kid out of there.
So that's where I'm kind of perplexed when it's like searching for what? Like, what do you need to search for something for? I know subs have to come in.
You know what? If it's not broke, let's break it.
Yeah,
it was kind of perplexing, everything last night.
I agree. I mean, that was one of the biggest problems, is that things were going so smooth and you felt like you had to stick with your substitution pattern that you came into the game with. I just would have gone away from it and said, hey, look, like this thing's rolling. Let's try to build a 15-point lead, a 20-point lead. That's not safe against Memphis. They just keep like coming back at you. But I'll also point this out. They did a really good job on Ja. They did a really good job. There are certain aspects of the game that they did really, really well. Yeah. And it's just you're taking away one thing and getting beat by another thing. And again, the tape, if we go to the tape and we look at some of the problems, they're just so glaring. And I don't blame, like if Mike had 15 timeouts, I think he'd use them, because it's just like, look, how many times do we go over this in practice and that just happened? The play just got blown up so bad. That's not what we've taught at all. So explain to me why it is that you were 3 feet off of a guy going to the basket and you just ran with him and watched him go up and lay the ball up. Like, why did that just happen? And I don't think that they there's not enough timeouts to fix some of the issues. And that's why it's good that they have.
Oh, not with Mike Brown. Not the way he used them joints.
Yeah.
I don't know how many timeouts Mike Brown needs to get him through a half, but he did the old early timeout gimmick, and then had to challenge the Keegan Murray play, and that just blew up.
I'm still disgusted with this.
It just blew up timeouts.
I mean, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, ridiculous. That was poor officiating. And I'll say this: like, we talked about poor officiating or not, and I've always been someone who's like, look, this final score is going to be the final score, time and time again. Like, if you really look at how many mistakes are made. But I think that Kings fans should be a little ornery that Desmond Bane was able to flex in the face of Davion Mitchell for a good 5 seconds in front of an official and not get a call. He was also able to just run down the court pointing at Terrence Davis and not get a technical. There were so many times where it was like, okay, what exactly are we doing here? And why did Terrence Davis, and Sean Cunningham will tell you, Terrence Davis got his technical because what he did was in front of Dame. And so you don't show up Dame. But again, it's kind of Bush League. Watching, it was right on our end of the court. I mean, he held that flex in Davion's face for a good 5 seconds.
Wow. That's such trash, dude. Yeah. Same arena. Like, it happened in the same building.
It's crazy. The referees are...
Yeah, they're bad. They're bad at what they do.
I know they talk about it's a hard job and all this other stuff. Well, that doesn't mean you're not failing, okay? Just because it's a hard job doesn't mean you're not failing. And that's what's going on with them right now.
Well, congratulations. You're failing at a job that's really hard.
There you go.
It's a very difficult job.
They're very bad at it.
They are very bad at it. Let me ask something a little positive. I thought, well, you know me. You know what I've been waiting for. for 6 years now. Fox and Monk, they blew the roof off that place for a little bit. And I just got to ask the question, do you think that we're going to see a little bit more of those two on the court together? Obviously, we've seen some of it already, but I don't know. I mean, did they show Mike Brown and talking about rotations that they should be on the court more together? I don't know if it's a starting thing or you maneuver the minutes, but I think they need to be together more out there on the court.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, we didn't ask Mike specifically about that. We did talk to Monk today, and Monk is a fun guy. I mean, he's keeping the spirits up with that team. He's one of those guys who is a jokester, and he's actually started to play really well. Look, I think we're going to see Monk be one of the first guys in the game, and I think we're going to see him be truly the sixth guy. So we'll have the starting lineup, and then we'll have that other guy who plays like starter minutes the whole time, and I think that that's the way it needs to be. And I also think that, like, again, I don't know how many times we saw it so many times during the preseason, during training camp, where like these groups of 5 players were all together, right? So the starters, whether it was KZ or whoever it was, and then you go to the next group, and it was very distinct. It was Davion and Monk and Rashawn and Keegan and Terrence Davis. And then the third team, we didn't see a lot of cross-pollination here with these groups. We didn't see a lot of having the top 10 guys go against the other 10 guys. We didn't see that. And I'm not sure that they did it behind the scenes because, like Rashawn Holmes told us, he's never played like on the same team as Sabonis. And I kind of feel like that's what we're watching. We're watching that like 5 guys started and they went up against 5 guys every day. And now those 10 guys are playing, but they haven't really played against together. They've only played against each other. And so, again, it takes a little bit of time where I think Keegan Murray is the one guy who can just walk into any group and be like, okay, I got this, like, and I thought it was fun today. We actually got Keegan to laugh and actually show a little bit of personality. We were messing with him pretty good at practice. I don't know if you guys played it earlier, but yeah, that was intentional. Like we came in like, hey, let's mess with him. But I think it's good to see that side of him a little bit. But they've got a lot to figure out as a team. And
how about Kevin Huerter? I know you talked to Kevin Huerter after the game last night in the locker room.
Yeah, he said he was fine. I've watched the clip back a couple of times. He got hit hard. And
Yeah, it
it
looked
actually
like
it looked like he had actually pulled his shoulder in, his arm in, so he wasn't fully extended when he got hit, and it got him really good. He was on the court today, and he was shooting, and he fully participated in practice. Mike said that they're going to have to see how he feels tomorrow because it's an early game. So he'll go through practice. He went through practice today. We'll have to see what he looks like, when he shows up at the arena at 12 o'clock tomorrow, and if he's still moving around all right. But I think he'll play. Well, there's a good chance he'll play. And if he doesn't, Monk is a guy who will step right in and probably still those starter minutes. But yeah, I want to see that 3-guard lineup with Monk and Fox and Herter at the 3. I want to see more of it, and I just don't think we've seen a lot of it during all of training camp and everything else.
Yeah. Still early, guys. Still early. I know nobody wants to hear it. I was just as frustrated as everybody else last night, but 0-4, while it isn't great, it's still just 4 games. I laid out a scenario, not saying that it will happen, just saying that, hey, it could happen. Lay out a scenario, you win on Saturday, you win the first 2 of the road trip, all of a sudden you're 1 game under 500. That's how quick these things can turn. But they've got to make sure.
You just like casually throw out a 3-game winning streak. Like that.
2 of those games I think are against Miami too, right?
Well, 1 against Miami, the other one's the Hornets and the Magic. So, you going into the second Miami game, you could be 3-4. We'll see.
All
I mean, it could happen. Could happen. Not saying it will. Could happen.
All right.
Well, even if you win 2 of those games, you're 2-2. What's that? 2-5. Just start taking these things like Damien said earlier, 1 game at a time. Man.
1 game at a time.
Try and win a game. and see where that leads you, man. So
You don't need to be 1-4 tomorrow. You need to be 1-0 on Saturday.
there you go. Damian Wilson.
Yeah. Let's ride.
That's right.
About to do some high knees here.
High
during the
knees
commercial
right
break. Do some high knees. James doesn't do high knees during the commercial break. He's not committed as I am.
That's
Over
right.
here, 4 hours of training. I think one other thing about the bench, James, is they're like Malik has gotten hot a couple of times. Saw Terrence get hot at the beginning. I don't think there's ever going to be a level of consistency to that, because we speculated whether there's going to be, whether it's Mike or excuse me, whether it's Malik or Terrence Davis, there's going to be a guy that Mike kind of rides because they're hot. That's probably not going to create a level of consistency there. Like if Davion, you got to go to Davion because he's vital to De'Aaron's rest. And, you know, maybe there's a few things that you have to do. But in terms of the amount of minutes they play, that could wind up being based on how they're playing that night. Like, perfect example, Terrence Davis, game 1, Malik Monk last night.
Yeah, no, I think there's going to be a lot of that, but I also think that those 5 guys that are in your starting lineup, who are all pretty solid scorers, they're going to take turns helping out that second unit. Like it should never be the second unit 5 guys on their own out there. I think
And it was. I think the most it was last night was 4. It was 4 with Keegan.
Yeah, they're trying to stagger the minutes, and you can even say like that's what they were doing with Harrison Barnes early on, and Keegan might even be better suited for that, to like go into the second unit for that first stretch and still provide the scoring punch. But yeah, you got to ride the hot hand, and I think, you know, this team needs to find consistency, and it's got to start with those first 5 or 6 guys, but then it's got, when you get your opportunity, it's got to be no holds bar. You got to go out there and do your job, and it's not something that we're seeing right now. They've got to get better, that second unit, and it's really hurting this team at this point. They got to find the group that's going to work and find a group that can find consistency and keep the team floating until the starters get back in the game.
Just want to mention it because we would mention it if it was the other way. De'Aaron Fox is balling right now.
De'Aaron Fox wasn't
phenomenal.
And I was thinking as James was talking there, this is right on brand. We probably didn't give Harrison Barnes his due. We mentioned it.
We killed him
We
for 3
absolutely
days.
we absolutely talked about it, and we mentioned it, but we did not give Harrison Barnes
He
his
played
due
really
yesterday.
well last night, too.
He was aggressive. He was solid.
Yep.
Yeah, he was outstanding.
The Kings just had too many things go right for them, in my opinion, to lose that game. Hopefully, James, we'll be back here on Monday, and the Kings will be 1-0 on Saturday and 1-4 headed out on this road trip. That's James Ham, our 1320 Kings Insider. Make sure you check out all of his content over at thekingsbeat.com.